Welcome to the Freestyle Grand Slam Chess Tour of 2025. This is a official random chess tournament, which means that the back row pieces for white as well as black have been shifted to different position equally for both the parties. This is done with the purpose to remove this huge people, 2800, 2700 grandmaster out of the theory and to understand this chess position and to play it. But apart from the position, this beautiful position, the more interesting is the people who are playing this. This is the Gukesh Domaraju, the current FIDE World Chess Champion, versus the person who is still considered as a world champion by many, the Magnus Carlsen. So with white pieces is Gukesh Domaraju, and with black pieces is Magnus, the greatest Carlsen. And how are these people going to understand this position? First of all, they look at this bishop at the corner, and the simple idea is to develop this pawns over here. So Gukesh here goes for f4. Now, the simple idea is he wants to develop this kind of structure over here, and then he wants to open this diagonal for this bishop. And maybe this knight comes over here, and maybe this knight has to maneuver something like this to support this push. That is what Gukesh is going to do here. And look at this. Gukesh is trying to open up this diagonal. So Magnus Carlsen plays here. He's saying, okay, I'm going to push this pawn, and we can trade this bishop. And in some cases, I will just push this pawn also, and then I'm going to move my knight to this square and push for this pawn. This is his idea. He has prepared this all. And look at this. These people traded the bishop, and now this bishop is going to open. Magnus Carlsen develops a structure similar to Gukesh, but in this opposite direction. And now Gukesh maintains this great pyramid over here. This knight is very well protected, and now the game will begin where the maneuvering of knight takes place, and they have to look how and who is going to capture more center over here. So Magnus plays this. Gukesh is playing with the idea that he wants to push this, and Magnus is going to play this, and trying to push for this e5. So these people are maneuvering the knights, as you can see. Gukesh has struck first, but the Magnus is again the greatest player of all time. He's not going to allow Gukesh to take all the center, and now there is a pressure here on e4. Okay, he develops the queen, trying to say that if, okay, you take with this, I am going to take with my pony, and this is very well protected over here. After this, Magnus, the greatest Carlsen, says, okay, I am again going to attack the center, and now there is a lot of pressure. And if the same category of four people comes in the same position, and they're working for the same work, there is always going to be fight, and someone is going to strike. And Gukesh says, okay, I am going to strike first. He takes here, and Magnus is going to take with the knight, and after this knight takes, he's going to take with the queen, and that is what happens in the game. And Gukesh here castles, which looks like just an what do we say, the teleportation of a king from C to G. It just looked like a king teleported over here. But this is the rule of Fisher random key. If you want to castle this, you have to castle in a position which looks like a normal castling in a king set. Suppose this is a normal chess and you castle king set, your rook will be here and the king will be here, and that is what it should look like over here. And now this pawn is very well defended by these three pieces. So Magnus is going to attack this pawn, and now Gukesh has to decide what he has to do with this pawn over here. And now this bishop has nowhere to develop. This rook, he can move over here, but what is it? What is he going to do? Is he going to move his knight over here? Because there is no other move. Magnus can just move his queen back, and this pawn is still hanging over here. So what Gukesh plays here is he plays the best move of the engine, which is d4. Magnus looks at the position and says, yeah, I can go back, but this pawn is hanging, right? So I'm going to take it, and let's see what Gukesh has in mind. So Gukesh is going to take this, trying to destroy this pawn structure of Magnus, but is Magnus going to allow this? No, Magnus is going to take this pawn again. Okay, for this time being, he's about this pad structure. Okay, so Rook is going to come in. He's trying to go for this f4 push, but Gukesh is already ready for this. He's going to move his knight to h3, and then afterward, he's going to maneuver his knight to f4, and that is his idea. But to move this knight here, he has to first dislodge this queen because this queen has pinned this knight to a king. So he attacks the queen moves back, and the knight moves over here, trying to say, okay, if you're ready to bring your rook over here, you're trying to go for this push. My knight is already going to block this. So now it's in black to move. So black moves his rook over here. And this push is not valid right now because the knight can very well protect this. So Gukesh is going to go for this push, saying, Magnus, what are we going to do about this pawn? And looking at the tension on this pawn, Magnus says, I am going to castle over here. And now this doesn't look like a teleportation. This look like the black king just grabbed the throat of this rook and just shifted him from right to left over here. Oh, sorry, may I say left to right over here. So now What is Magnus going to do? Magnus is not going to take. Magnus is just going to push this pawn. You know Magnus, right? He's going to push this pawn. Look at this. But before pushing that, okay, now Gukesh maintains this. Okay, so there is attack on this also, and there is no valid push right now. Before moving this pawn, look at Magnus. He says, "Ki your queen should be moved from here so that I can get this whole open file over here." And now he will push it. This is what Magnus Carlsen does. And look at this. This pawn is always going to create a pressure to Gukesh. And now this bishops have been traded because this bishop didn't have any purposes in their life. And now this pawn was hanging. So it gives a check. But Magnus is going to trade this off. And now this is an endgame which Gukesh has to face against Magnus. And Gukesh says, yeah, I got a great outpost. I can trade one of the rooks over here like this. And then I'm going to get a centralized rook over here. And that is what he says he's going to play for a win over here. But now, look at this. Does it seem like, this look at this white king? He kind of look like innocent king. And look at this black king just look like devilish, right? There is a devilish vibe in this king. If you feel like it's a devilish vibe, just comment down below. Okay, after this position, Magnus says, okay, I'm going to trade this rook off. And if you really trade it, better luck playing this endgame with me because it is just favoring Magnus. So Gukesh is not going to do that. And now, okay, this allows Magnus to infiltrate over here, but also it is an infiltration for Gukesh. And despite of infiltration of Magnus, it's like 2-0. So Magnus really has to think about it. So Magnus is not going to allow this infiltration. He's going to develop his knight to this position and he wants to go for e4 and he wants to support this push by bringing his knight over here or maybe on this square. Maybe perhaps, yeah, that is the idea of him. And now Gukesh needs to do something with this rook, so he tries to develop over here. Magnus develops his knight, which was his purpose. And now Gukesh just centralizes his knight again, creating an outpost, attacking on this rook. This rook moves over here. And now Gukesh identifies a fork and says, yeah, I'm going to fork this pawn and this king. And he doesn't take it. Why doesn't he take it? Because, yeah, he took almost like 30 seconds here calculating this. And this doesn't work because he can just play e4. And now this is hanging. You cannot just give a check also here. This push is also coming. The best move is to do something like this. But then this rook comes over here. And what are you going to do? Are you going to attack this? Okay, but this comes and who is going to stop this pawn from queening? This is just 1.2 and this is just, you can see 1.2 for Stockfish, but this is just win-win for Magnus Carlsen. So after this, okay, Magnus moves over here. Also, you can say that why didn't Gukesh go for this? Okay, you can play something like this. This is a fork, but then again, this pawn, look at this pawn. This pawn is 2 ahead, and this knight is 2 ahead. This king is very much ahead here, and this is just equal, but kind of Magnus kind of position. And Gukesh don't want to go for that. So after this check, Gukesh just goes back again, and now this knight tries to do something over here, attacking this rook. So this rook needs to move, and after this devilish king comes ahead and attacks this rook, so rook goes back. And after all this maneuvering and all this activity, you can just see that Magnus king just went from here to here. And okay, white has this kind of pin right now. He's going to give that pin. But before that, Magnus says, yeah, I am looking at this pin. I know this pin is going to come. Currently, I cannot go here because your rook is over here, but I'm going to move my king ahead and bring it more closer to the center. Okay, now this is a pin, but I don't care. It's a pin. I want to just play this push. Now, why this push is important? Because, of course, you're going to go for here. But when this pin is, unpinned, this rook will move. Where will this rook move? This rook needs somewhere, right? Somewhere where it can create a pressure. So Magnus is trying to open up this B file, and Gukesh is not going to do. Gukesh is trying to develop his king because this king is not doing anything. He's just stuck on this G1 square in the home, and he thinks that in home he can do all his wishes. But to do something in your life, you always have to go out of your home, and Magnus does the same thing. This rook is now going to infiltrate from here. After the king comes here, so king moves over here, and now this is very well protected. This is unpinned. King tries to move over here, and look at this. Magnus says, "Ki, are you willing to go for this trade? Because you are not going to trade this because this is just in too good of structure in the center of the board. King is very much ahead over here, and apart from that, there is a threat of this hanging pawn over here. And how are you going to avoid this and this trade over here?" So Gukesh here plays a move, which is a very great move. You can protect this pawn with this knight and also avoid this trade over here. What are you going to play? Okay, it's a simple move, but you have to identify what is after that. Okay, Gukesh here plays knight f4. This is a great move because why? You cannot take this. After this check comes and your rook is kind of hanging. Okay, you go back. I take this pawn right now. Again, it's a check. You have to be with your rook here, and now this looks kind of 2-on-1. Okay, rooks suppose rooks are off, and this is 1-on-1. This knight is closer to this pawn. This king is closer to maybe this is equal, but this is kind of Gukesh can play for a win. So Magnus is not going to go for that. So after this position, what Magnus does is Magnus plays this move. Now Gukesh looking at this position says, okay, I can see this rook has been gaining tempo, so I can just give a check. So his king is not going to go here. If he goes over here, he is hanging a fork here. So there's the only move he has to move over here. And now I gain a tempo, but he forgets that this rook purpose was never to stay here. It was to go to b7 and infiltrate here. And now Gukesh is under big trouble. He tries to create something happening on this side, but now it's just over because Magnus Carlsen is going to identify the best move. You only give Magnus Carlsen one chance and he's going to take it. Knight e4. And it's the nail in the coffin. Why? Because it's not a threat of infiltration of a rook. It's just a checkmate of your king. And now Gukesh tries something to go for here, but king just moves here. And again, this threat is valid. You need to move your king. Okay, king moves, and now the threat is not even infiltration. It's just d3. You cannot do anything because rook needs to go back. This needs to go back, and after this, the king is going to move ahead, and this rook is going to infiltrate. And this is just a bad position, and that's the reason why in this position, Gukesh Tomaraju resigns and Magnus Carlsen became the champion again. Okay, not he didn't won the tournament, but he won this game. And he showed really why he is a five-time world chess champion. And Gukesh has a very long journey ahead. Gukesh can just learn from his mistakes. Gukesh can, and you know what Magnus Carlsen says after about this match? He says Gukesh was trying to go for much more than it was needed. That is what Magnus Carlsen said. So sometimes, according to Magnus, it's like you need to accept that this position is draw and you have to go for your life. But Gukesh just tried to do something more, and that resulted into the failure because he just tried to do something over here in this position, and it was not necessary. Maybe he can just go for something like f2 and try to create a multiple, some kind of threats with knight here, knight jumps over here. He can do that, but he just tried to go for something attacking, something aggressive, and it just didn't happen in their way. And this is what is life. Okay, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I hope you love this video. I hope you will share this video to the people who watches chess. And just a funny incident today, this video is like the 8th or 10th time I'm recording this video just because I have a little bit of cough over here, and I recorded once, but when I uploaded it, I just it didn't give a positive vibes over there. It was just like I was sad, feeling sad, so I didn't like that, and just I can just notice it. I just first thing I got a dislike, so I just noticed that I should delete that video and just make this video again. I hope you will love this video. I hope you will support this channel. Share to the people who watches chess. Share to the people who are the lover of Magnus Carlsen, who are the supporters of Gukesh Domaraju, and the supporter of freestyle chess. A fish random. Till then, love you. Take care. Kalchika Bhavannu.